stopping this. I was not looking at anything else except to try and do something that would lead to maybe one life being saved, one life that could be saved. Try to do something like that. So we did whatever guidelines were coming, while we were continuously trying to push for widening the protocols. Please make more testing kits available. Please make automated RTP if it was not being allowed. Should rapid testing kits be used as surveillance kits? They are not tests, but can they be used as surveillance kits? So I was seeing myself in a dark room where I would be participating in taking a decision, not knowing really anything. You don't know. You are testing people through thermal sensors. Is the thermal sensor capable of telling you whether you're a COVID patient? It'll just give you an indication whether somebody has fever. And then we are talking about constantly asymptomatic cases, which are 80 to 85% in number. So you have asymptomatic cases, and they are the carriers, and they are basically the ones who would reach those 20 to 60% of the population. They would be the means of spreading this virus to such a large number. So what is to be done? So while protocols were coming and we were looking at one country, we started saying, test or screen much more, not just test. Screen as many more people as possible, put as many more people into quarantine and dedicated facilities, quarantine facilities as possible, because it was all groping in the dark. We got our first positive tests in Chhattisgarh from students coming in from the UK, when UK was not even on the Government of India protocol for testing. It just kept developing. So when we were seeing these things happening, we were looking at the guidelines which were coming, we were looking at the protocols which were coming, but trying to take in as much as we could on the side of caution. So at the time, we even had more than 1 lakh people in home quarantine. About 105,000 people have gone through home quarantine. And we tried to reach people as soon as possible, symptomatic people as soon as possible, so that with the limited RT-PCR testing facilities, we could test those symptomatic people as soon as possible. So we tried to approach the citizens of Chhattisgarh. Please come forward. Don't be afraid of letting us know, sharing if there is any discomfort, if you're having any symptoms. Don't be afraid. Please come forward. And we are happy that we had students coming. Please test us. I am not feeling, but I have come from UK. Please test us. And 5 of those were found positive. They were people who we were able to get confidence of. And they came, a large number of people started coming and saying, we've come from abroad, would you like to test us? That is what we tried to do. And with a very large amount of luck, I'm sure a fair share of luck, we have not had a mortality so far. We've had 59 identified positive cases. 54 of them have been discharged as of now. 5 are in AIIMS. AIIMS has been a big pillar of support for us. We've been able to work in a very, very coordinated manner. Otherwise, this is Government of India, this is Government of a state, Chhattisgarh Government of India. We did not find any seam. We were able to work very comfortably as a team, and so far things hold good, but it's all fingers crossed. We are not saying we've done anything. We've just tried to do whatever was possible, and we are waiting for that time with large number of people coming in now from outside. It has to spike. Apart from the normal spread, we are still debating whether there is community spread in Chhattisgarh. So far, we've been able to identify only 2 positive cases whom we have not been able to identify to a travel source. So, community spread in Chhattisgarh, we have not yet been able to identify, and yet we say 80 to 85% would be asymptomatic. So, we are living with those realities, hoping for the best, trying not to test as little as possible, try to test as much as we can, and identify people and give relief as much as possible. So this is basically what we have tried to do, knowing there is no cure, knowing that hydroxychloroquine is in circulation. America has come up and said, you better give us, otherwise, you know what. So seeing all that with presidents coming forward and saying that hydroxychloroquine is the cure. But I am, so far, we are presuming that no declared cure, whether there is Ayurveda, whether there is homeopathy, or whether there are other means. There are prophylactics. Use whatever you can as a tonic, as something which may support you. If it is given to you by a recognized doctor in whichever field, but knowing that it is not a cure. There is no declared cure in the world. But if there are people, we have Rajiv Bajaj saying that these pills they have helped us. So okay, take them, but take them knowing that this is not a declared cure. If it helps you, so much the better. It is something which will probably not harm you. If a doctor is giving it, he would have seen the side effects. So, Dr. Saab, this is what your a son of a mother from Himachal, we are trying to do. And whatever guidance we can get from this very distinguished gatherings, we'd like to carry it along and try to implement it in Chhattisgarh. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sir, you have been very modest in your approach, but let me compliment you. You've done a fantastic job in Chhattisgarh, and all of us commend you for this. Just one more question, if I may. With the little anti-China notion coming in, is the government planning to kind of look at investments coming in to Chhattisgarh because of this? We can have an opportunity out of it?
Investments are certainly open, but see, in today's regime of the GST, states like Chhattisgarh are suffering. We were producing states which were getting revenue from VAT. After the GST regime has come in, our resources are being used. Chhattisgarh, when it was formed, one of the logic or one of the basis rationale behind forming the state of Chhattisgarh was Amir Dharti ke Garib Log. So we had a lot of natural resources, but relatively our people were poorer. So with the GST regime, being a producing state and not a consuming state, we are losing out on revenues. Whoever is producing here, you're producing steel, it is being consumed in Himachal, for example. So the consuming state is benefiting, UP is benefiting, Bihar is benefiting. Our resources are not benefiting Chhattisgarh, the people of Chhattisgarh. So as a country at large, you may say that wealth is being created for the country, so that's okay. But at the expense of not sounding parochial, the resources of Chhattisgarh must also equitably benefit the people of Chhattisgarh. So activities are welcome, but activities which will use the land, the water, the electricity and pollute Chhattisgarh must benefit the people of Chhattisgarh commensurately, and then it is welcome. I am not in favor of relaxing land laws which favor our tribal community. There is a move that you remove this clause that tribal land cannot be bought by a non-tribal. So there is pressure, there has been pressure from the business community to remove that. So I am being frank and I am forthcoming in saying I am not in favor of that. I come from a tribal region, though as such, unfortunately, I am not registered as a tribal. But I can sense their deprivation. You bring in clauses like this and our tribal community will be deprived of their land. People will use it to take over land from tribal communities. So I am not in favor of depriving tribal community of their right to land in the name of doing business. There are many other ways. There are many other places where business establishments could come in. I am not in favor of depriving the Gram Panchayats of their rights in the name of business. I am not in favor of depriving the labor of their rights in the name of business. So reforms, okay. But the priority must reforms for whom? Reforms are not for non-entity, not a non-living entity. Reforms are for living and breathing people. If reforms are to come in, it is not for a subjective entity. It has to be an objective, living, breathing person who must benefit. And again, at the expense of being parochial, we must see that the resources of a state, if they are used for national or even global wealth creation, it must equally, if not a little more, benefit people of that area. So whatever comes, it must give employment to people of this area. It must give income generation for this region, and then let that wealth be shared by all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable time. It was such a pleasure listening to your thoughts. And I must compliment you once again for the beautiful work that the health ministry is doing in Chhattisgarh. Thank
आपका
you very
बेटा
much, sir.
हिमाचल ने कुछ किया?
नहीं, हिमाचल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल साहब, बिल्कुल sir. Such a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now direct my questions to Dr. Rajan Sharma, sir. Dr. Rajan is the national president of Indian Medical Association, a very renowned orthopedician and a stalwart in the field of medicine.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Rajaji.
Kuldeep Saab, please. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. It was such a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
My first question to you would be, we have seen a dramatic increase in the violent behavior against the healthcare workers in this testing time. What is your advice to the general public, sir?
The violence of any kind is highly condemnable in a civilized society. So all my views have been known and are known. I would just say we are precious. Please protect us. Give us a free and a free environment to a worldly uncertain time. Because a doctor, in which I agree with the Honorable Sir, first of all I would like to compliment on his very humble and nice presentation, but Chhattisgarh is doing very good. Sir, that doctors at the moment, by doctors I mean the nurses, healthcare professionals, my sanitation workers, and above all the police. Everybody is under tremendous pressure. They have families back home. The fear which is haunting you is haunting us also. But only we can comfort you that everything will be all right. Everybody knows, Dev sir has very aptly put it, there is apparently no cure, but history always teaches you something. By history I mean, if you remember the first flu in the world, the Spanish flu, it took away 25% of the population of the world. And by far it was the most devastating flu. The thumb rule of that era was isolation, take care of yourself, respiratory etiquettes and personal hygiene. By isolation it meant go into a room, open the windows, expose yourself to fresh air, take care of your fever, drink lots of fluids, whatever medicines were available, and don't spit, take care of what you cough and when you speak. And personal hygiene, you have a bath and take care of your clean environment. So these three things have been the thumb rule for any epidemic till date. If we follow these three things, we are going to settle this thing totally. And COVID, I must tell you, being COVID positive does not mean death. It is one of a very mild virus. And swine flu, if everybody remembers 10 to 12 years ago, was far more lethal. It was airborne. But we have overcome that. I am very hopeful that the country has risen up to the occasion, that we are able to manage things. Yes, as the testing has increased, the positivity rate will increase. But again, it is pertinent to remember, at 1 lakh tests per day, it will take us 37 years to test the entire population, sir. The only thing is, we have to be aware, red spot areas, scan them fully. And testing is why testing is important than thermal scanning is that it will take care of the silent spreaders. But if you take care of these three thumb rules of respiratory ethics and personal hygiene, we can mitigate the suffering to a larger extent. Now the responsibility is on each one of us as Indian nationals. The government has prepared, all the governments, I must compliment them, my entire political and the ruling class. They have risen to the occasion to teach you a lesson. Please follow these rules. Now, if we don't follow, spoon feeding never helps a child.
Very true. Thank you, sir. Very well said. One more very pressing question is the post-COVID era, the post-COVID era, so to say. What do you think the young doctors are going to face? What challenges do you think these young healthcare workers and doctors are going to face post this COVID era?
First of all, if Dev sir is here, post-COVID era, healthcare, violence, and protection of the healthcare professionals will be the biggest challenge for which the entire country and the political class has to rise to the occasion. Because any person who is frustrated with the system or the expectations, see, when I expect so many things from you, Dr. Rajat, and you don't come up to my expectation, it is very difficult to meet an expectation.
True. True.
So that system, we are the easy target who are easily available without security. By laws, I don't mean that it will stop. I would be the most happy person in the world as a doctor when these amendments in the Epidemic Act which are there, and the way we are requesting everybody, and I will request Dev sir also to incorporate in the Chhattisgarh also to protect our healthcare professionals. I would be the most happy when the entire country does not have to implement these laws against our own country.
Absolutely.
We are also working under pressures. We have to meet expectations. Fear of the unknown nature of the disease, as sir very aptly put it. We are daily learning from it. But I must again be very hopeful and tell you, India is unique. We have been a seat of knowledge, and I must tell you this. Post-COVID, we will teach the world how to manage COVID.
Amen to that.
Lockdown is a step in that direction, which never ever anybody imagined.
True, sir. The youth today is facing a very obscure kind of a future, and their psyche is a little disturbed. What would you like to tell our youth? How do they maintain their composure and they maintain their psychological balance in this time of difficulty?
Our hope can never have despair. Youth is always a symbol of energy, synergy, and hope. An old man or a father has hope that his son is the future of the family. So they are the future of the country. So they cannot have despair. And another thing, let's be very clear, we are humans. We are not God. Youth's role is in today's society. They are full of energy, brimming with energy. They can overcome challenges. They don't have fear. By fear, I say don't be foolish. Be aware of your safety. They are well aware through social media, whatever it is. But they have to carry home this message. Don't get into these false rumors. Have false myths against COVID disease. Somebody says doctors and healthcare professional nurses are carrying, today is the International Nurses Day, that we are carrying the disease. The youth, the biggest message besides online classes on their groups is that the doctors, nurses and healthcare professionals are the only wall between COVID and our country. So this is the message they should be spreading day in and day out till the time it is drilled into everybody, including the elders. And if the youth of the locality, of the town, they get together, they can change opinions. It is their era. So nothing to despair. As far as education is concerned, I will still say we have to get back to normal. We have to
Absolutely.
open up. We have to get back to normal. Mask, personal hygiene is going to be a norm for coming times. Physical distancing is coming times. But I believe me, we can overcome this with very simple measures and not flout the rules with impunity.
Thank you very much, sir. It was so enlightening and so motivating to hear you. And I'm sure today's youth will come back, bounce back, and we will be back in action very soon. Thank you very much for
Thank
this
you so much.
time that you've given us. Thank
So
you,
nice.
sir. Now we will take our conversation to Mr. Nixon Joseph, sir. He's the president and CEO of SBI Foundation. Can we have him on the screen, Kuldeep sir?
Yeah. Yep. It is over to Mr. Nixon Joseph. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome, sir. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, I'm
And-
also honored being part of
and
this webinar.
actually, I was looking for a session with you because what we are facing today is something like a 10 million jobs at risk, maybe maybe 100 million jobs which are about to be cut, and a financial situation which is unprecedented, and this is globally. In this scenario, it is the youth which is the most affected, because they are the ones who are just about to launch themselves, just about to start financially also. And so my question is, my first question to you is, we have seen companies going into NPA even pre-COVID. And the post-COVID era is probably going to be a little more stressful for the MSMEs and basically the job givers. So how are the banking people preparing themselves to deal with these financial situations post-COVID?
See, it's a tough question because for bankers also this was a bolt from the blue. Everyone was taken by surprise by this COVID crisis. As you already told already, there was a stress in the loans even before the COVID, and now COVID has emerged. There is a lot of economy has slowed down or almost closed. So it is natural that banks which have lent to corporates, MSMEs, will be facing a lot of NPAs in the days to come. But then, okay, we have given moratorium of 3 months to many of the MSMEs and manufacturing sector, etc. But situation may get serious if the crisis is prolonged. I am hopeful that the lockdown will be lifted gradually and the economy will slowly start running. If not, as you told, we are going to face a very big crisis which we have never faced maybe during the last 40-50 years, which will be much more than the 2004 financial crisis. But I am hopeful that the situation in India also will get controlled. We will get used to COVID and the economy also will run parallelly, so that a huge chunk of NPA and all as we fear may not happen. Though there will be stress in the midterm, maybe for a period of 5 to 6 months and all, there could be stress. That is natural. But then I'm sure banking system in India will overcome this.
Great, thank you, sir. My question is from the students actually. Students heavily depend upon the education loans given by the banks for their studies. Will we see a further relaxation in norms to get educational loans for our students?
See, I won't be able to tell much on this because I am with the SBI Foundation and not with SBI. So, but what I hope is that after this lockdown is lifted and post-COVID, there will be a lot of relaxations in various conditions of various loans so that credit flow can increase. So naturally, even education loans also will form part of it. So post-COVID, as terms and conditions get relaxed for all the loans, all the credit dispensations, then education loan also will get the benefit of that. To what extent it will be relaxed, I cannot tell. But then if all the other credit facilities are getting relaxation post-COVID, education loans also will be benefited by that.
Thank you, sir. One last question. Banking sector itself is going through a lot of stress. Well, stress is becoming part of everybody's life, even during this time when we have nothing actually to do. And this is especially seen in youth because they have so much of energy, but they don't have anything to do. So can you give our youth some pointers where they can come out of this situation, utilize their energy somehow to make themselves better?
See, this COVID has sprung on us all on a sudden. So not only youth, all the spectrum of the population are under stress. But youth always is full of energy, full of hope. And if they are stressed, there is no hope for the nation. What I will advise the youth is that challenges will be there all through life. Therefore, we should not surrender to the challenges. Rather, we should accept it as a new normal and come with creative solutions to it. We have our hobbies, we have our passions, we have our interests. During this period where there is a lot of stress, we have to give attention to such of our passions, interests and all, so that we get distressed. I will just tell an example. I'm a long distance runner, and because of this lockdown, I'm not able to run outside. But then this is causing disappointment to many people. I cannot sit inside my home disappointed, feeling that there is no hope in the future. I cannot run at all. I'm held up by this lockdown. No. This abnormal situation, this new situation requires a creative response from us. So what I did was, I started jogging inside my house, and during the lockdown period, I completed 3 full marathons of 42 kilometers just jogging inside my apartment. I wanted to give a powerful message to all the youth, all the people, that we should not find excuses and then feel stressed that we are not able to do anything. Rather, when such situations are there, each of us, need not be youth, also everyone have to see that, learn that these are the challenges, this is the reality. And from this reality, how I am going to respond, how I am to go forth from here. That spirit of resilience, that has to be there in the youth and has to develop. It can happen only if we take up challenges. As I told you, 3 full marathons I did inside, 42 kilometers each, inside my apartment. It is impossible. Like, I thought initially it is not possible. But then if we have the determination, if we have the optimism, there is no need to feel stress. Youth will find their own challenges. For example, we have a fellowship called SBI Youth for India Fellowship, where I get 100 youths every year who have left their lucrative careers and they have joined this rural fellowship where they are now in the remote villages in India. Out of these fellows, almost 60 to 70% are young girls who are ready, willing to go to any remote part of India. And now during the COVID situation also, they are in these villages, but I find them quite energized. They have been doing a different project towards rural development. But because of this COVID lockdown, they cannot continue in that project. But what they have done is that they have now decided to do projects to spread awareness about COVID, awareness about social distancing. So all these things they are doing in that remote villages, away from their relatives, away from their friends, away from modern facilities. And I find that they are de-stressing themselves by doing something for the community. To the youth, as you told, if they are de-stressed now, I will tell one magic formula is help others. If you are able to help others in some way, and I am of the firm view that every human being in this world is capable of doing something. Every individual has something to offer to humanity, regardless of their situation, regardless of their circumstance. Even if, like I am a student, I am a teacher, I am a grown-up, I can offer something to humanity. And if in this COVID situation, if we are able to do something for our fellow citizens, there won't be any distress. We will be actually very, very satisfied with ourselves. And I will tell all the youth present here, there will not be a better opportunity for you to show your selflessness. This is the time for you to show altruism, a little self-sacrifice, and then do something for the community around us, to the marginalized. And that will give you more happiness. It will be a great learning experience also. It will also make us mentally stronger. Challenges will come in life. This is one challenge which we are experiencing, we have to learn through it, so that bigger challenges as we come in life, we become mentally strong and also gain the spirit of resilience. I'm telling you, not just giving message, I have practiced it in my life. I have been told many things that it cannot do it. With sheer determination, I have tried to overcome all the hurdles, challenges in front of me. And I'm very proud to tell that I completed 40 full marathons so far. I was never an athlete in my life. I started this running. I took an interest in running only at the age of 45. And since then, I've completed 40 full marathons. Just want to give the message that if we have the will, there is an inspiring way.
Amazing, sir. We are really inspired by your story. It is fantastic to hear, and I thank you for giving us your valuable views and beautiful time that you have given us. And this is a very rare opportunity where we have heard a politician, a doctor, and a finance specialist, coming together and giving their point of view on this dramatic situation that we are facing today. But I think with today's seminar, we have come out to be stronger, wiser, and I'm sure very de-stressed. So I thank all the three eminent speakers for their inputs. I thank APJ Shimla University for having conducted this amazing webinar. Thank you very much.